Welcome to another episode of the Why Not Podcast. I am your host, Teddy D. As always, thank you for joining us on the Black Astronauts Network. If you have any feedback, please write to the Why Not Podcast at gmail.com. Reach out on Twitter, Teddy_D_, or reach out on Instagram as Dwight Ted. If you are not a member of the Facebook group, please join the Black Astronauts Network group. If you ask for admittance, we will review your profile, and if you are, not too bad, we'll let you in. But just know this: if your profile is a picture of you holding a tiki torch, probably not going to get approved. Just a heads up. So today, I wanted to profile three incredible young ladies that I had a chance to work with recently, and they are in the process of starting their own podcast. I'm happy to help them out with that, and I met them through a connection that I have through a program called PACT, P-A-C-T, and that is through the Center for Women and Children, and a wonderful contact by the name of Miss Jackie White, as well as Miss Tracy Simmons and Emily Browning, which I appreciate all of their help and assistance in making this show happen. It is a short show, but it has substance in it, and I appreciate everything that they said on the mic, because these are conversations that on this network we talk about, but typically we don't have the actual conversations recorded while they're out in the world. And although this isn't the perfect example of that, it's definitely closer than what you would hear on the main show of Black Astronauts Podcast. So I do think you'll enjoy that. Before we get to that, I wanted to take a couple of moments to acknowledge a very, very important person here in Louisville, Kentucky, if you don't mind. I was honored to go to the homecoming service of Mrs.Elizabeth White, and I affectionately called her Grandma White. She was cover your ears if you're not in the black community here, but she was my play grandmother here in Louisville, and she was the only, she and her husband, Granddaddy White as I called him, were the only grandfather and grandmother that we had in town, because all of our family is from and still lives in Bessemer, Hueytown, Brighton, and Birmingham, Alabama's general area. And I just can't say enough great things about Grandma White. I always knew her as a woman that took the time to talk to me as a child and encourage me. She always came over with gifts every birthday, which was dope. She gave some actual really good gifts, like not the ones that you open, you just like, what is that? It's, I don't need a keychain, Grandma White, but thanks. Like, no, she actually gave me, like a jersey of my favorite team at the time, which was the Bengals if I was younger. And she was just so sweet, so incredibly nice. And my parents came from Birmingham, Alabama to Louisville, and forgive me if the year isn't correct, but I believe in 1976 is when my father graduated from the University of Alabama and got a job offer from Bell South here in Louisville, Kentucky, to be a manager. So he moved from Birmingham with no family, and he accepted the position. And at the time, he and my mother were dating but not engaged. My mother was a junior or a senior at Alabama A&M University, finishing her education degree. And my dad, after being here for about a year or so, called her on the phone, and he proposed. Because I love him, I'll spare the details of the lack of romance in that gesture, but nonetheless he did. She accepted. After she graduated from college, she moved to Louisville to be with him, And at the time in the 70s, I think it was 77 by the time she got here, after they got married, he was making, making solid money. So the 70s, black man out of college, a management position at Bell South, just roundabout here in Louisville. Let's say in today's day and time, it's like 60,000, just ballpark. He hasn't told me that. I'm just guessing. So my mom, after she graduated, had the idea that she was going to come and be a housewife, enjoy life, kick back for a little while, because she wanted to, to support him and get used to a new city. Neither one of them wanted to move away from their family, and it was a big transition. But a month before my mom got here, my dad had already filled out an application for her to start at JCPS as a teacher. So by the time my mom got here, she got notice that, hey, you have a job waiting for you at Englehart as a special education teacher. And she began her teaching journey with JCPS at Englehart. Grandma White, I believe, and forgive me if I have the schools incorrect, but I believe that Grandma White was my mother's co-worker at Englehart, the first school that she worked at in Louisville, Kentucky. And she was older than my mother, but at the time, if she just passed away and she was 90, let's do some quick math, family. What is it, 18? Carry the 1, subtract the 6, maybe 50-ish. I didn't graduate college, don't judge me, but the point is she quickly became my mom's mentor. She took the time to make sure that she felt accustomed to Louisville. She introduced us to, I hadn't come along at that point, but she introduced she and my father to Granddaddy White, her husband, as well as her kids, who I know as my play aunts and uncles, and would later be the parents to my now play cousins, Christopher, Latrice, were my age, and they were the two that I was closest to. So when she helped to mentor my mom, it helped to change my mom's perspective on the city of Louisville, because from speaking to her, she really wasn't feeling it at first. And I don't know if she and my dad would still be here if it wasn't for Grandma White, Granddaddy White, and people like them that embraced her here in the city of Louisville. So she was a big reason why down the road my family actually stayed instead of going back to Birmingham. And I am proud to say that I was born in the great city of Louisville, and the not so great state of Kentucky, because if it wasn't for Grandma White, I would be given a different tagline of born in the great city of Birmingham, and definitely the great city of Alabama right now. Shout out to my man Doug Jones. I see you, baby. But that's aside the point. So I know it's not directly connected to the topic that these three young ladies are talking about today, but I do think that there is a loose connection of sorts. And I was listening to Jay-Z's 444, and the song that he has that stood out in the album to me here recently was the remake of Donny Hathaway's One Day It'll All Be Free. And I don't know, man, it's weird. You hear a different flow from Jay in that song, right? So it's a very almost jazz-like, hushed tone that he's reciting these lyrics in, and even the microphone that they use, I think, was a little different than what Jay usually does, because as was pointed out by Wesley Morris on the great podcast Still Processing, Jay-Z's vocals are always crazy overdubbed. Well, in this song, it was very bare bones, single, just Jay-Z literally talking into a mic like I'm doing right now. And I don't know if we've heard that stripped down acoustic version of Jay on an album other than the Linkin Park collab that he did, or either the Roots collab that he did as well. But even that was with the crowd. I mean, it was just a great sound. And the one part that kept on standing out to me was when he kept saying legacy, 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 legacy. So I went to Grandma White's funeral this past Saturday, and I was just blown away by the testimony that so many people had of her, how kind she was, how she always went out of her way, and she was a great person, and she let her work speak for herself. So to close this out, I just wanted to say, I love you. I love you, Grandma White. I love the family. I appreciate her helping my family make a legacy in the city by making my mother feel as comfortable as she did when she didn't have to. So rest in peace, rest in power, job well done. And I also want to thank her family for sharing her with us because, my sister and I are she's 2.5 years older than me. We always called her Grandma White, and they never had a problem with it. At least they didn't tell us if they did. So that's very kind as well. So, now that we spoke about a wonderful woman, Grandma White, I wanted to give a little bit more background. And these 3 young ladies, we had a 1-day training in podcasting, and the training consisted of explaining, hey, this is how you record a podcast. This is what a podcast is. Really, it's whatever you want to make it. And I wish I could take more credit for what they actually put together, but really, it's just them. It's just them. We had one practice show before this where I hosted and we kind of navigated through a couple of questions, and it was about 5 minutes long, and it was good. But then I asked them, hey, you want to give it another shot, and this time you can just make your own show. And sure enough, they did, and this is what came about. In advance, I'm going to thank everyone for tuning in for another episode of the Why Not Podcast. This is a shorter version, just because, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I was just really busy this week, and usually I have more production, more whatever to put with it, but hopefully you can understand and give me a little grace on this episode. But I do think that the substance is still there. So I would love to hear from you. Please reach out at Dwight Ted on Instagram, Teddy_D_ on Twitter, Black Astronauts Network, and the Why Not Podcast at gmail.com. We have a great 3/5 podcast lined up for this following Monday with JL from the Black Is Network. And following that, we have a couple of interviews scheduled, one with Baylor the Great from BTG for President, as well as Open Run. And we have Justin Lee coming from Above the Rim podcast as well, and a couple more guests. So I'm excited to bring you some really good content. Thanks as always for rocking with me. From the great city in Louisville and the not so great state of Kentucky, a job well done, faithful servant. Thank you again, Grandma White. Peace out.
Hello, y'all. This is Sadia coming to y'all today on this beautiful, beautiful day.
My name is Nazra, Snazzy Naz,
My name is Serlene.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So today we have a couple of topics to talk to you guys about, and we have Miss Sarah over here interviewing Miss Nazra and myself, Sadia.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So what was the topic today that you would like to talk to us about, Miss Sarah?
So, guys, the topic was about school.
So what about schools?
Right, because we got a lot to talk about.
So how do you feel about schools? How do you feel about the cafeteria food? How do you feel about the teachers? How do you feel about the stairs we have to walk on? Like, how?
First
what
of
about
all,
the education.
right.
Yeah, how do you feel about your education? How do you feel getting treated in school?
Okay, let's talk about the education first of all. Like, I feel like they don't teach us what we really need to know.
Yes, I agree. I feel like we don't I feel like some of the things that we're learning today is not like things that will matter to us in the future.
Yeah.
I feel like they're not really like teaching us like things that like important things. We're getting taught the less important things. Like in history, I don't really like the way that we're getting taught history.
They always, it's like whenever about history, we always learn about. We don't learn about. I don't know how to explain it, but we don't learn about our culture's history, Black history.
I mean, we have world history too, but it's
Yeah.
not like we really don't talk about the world.
Yeah, we just talk about America.
We'll focus on it like 3 times.
Yeah,
Like, and then that'll be it. For all in world history, all we really talk about is religions.
yeah.
I mean, it's good to like know about other people's religions, but like tell us the real thing about like world history. Like let us really know about world history, because so many people nowadays are not educated when it comes to world history.
Mhm.
Yeah, I strongly agree about you. I strongly agree with you guys.
Mhm.
Miss Nazar, do you have a topic that you would like to talk to us about?
The food they be
Disgusting.
isn't it?
Awful.
Isn't it? Atrocious.
Another topic.
Atrocious. Another topic about schools.
Anything.
The
We can
what?
move on from schools if you want to.
No, I have something to say about the staff at school, 'cause they be tripping. But anyways, we can talk about another topic. Let's see. What about society? How do you think society views you as a young Black Muslim?
I think society's scared of us.
Mhm.
Just because, I mean, it's not us, but things that they've seen from, social media and the news. So I feel like the news, like teaches society to be scared of us.
Mhm.
So when we walk around, people look at us different, you know?
Mhm. How do you feel when you go outside in a public place and people are looking at you? How does that make you feel?
I mean, it makes me feel weird
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, why are you looking at me?
Yeah,
Is
I
there
just look
something-
back. I'll be like, hello.
I think it makes me feel weird. It just, especially me being a female and me being Black, my skin color is already an issue where we live in, as Black people. And on top of that, me being a Muslim. So I feel like we have it very hard here.
Exactly. I think that I hate people. Like, I just hate when people call Muslim terrorists. Like, you don't even know me. Like, anyways,
that's what they seen. Like you can't really blame them because they're not educated. That's what the media shows them.
Showing us, like that's what they're portraying us to be. Like that's what they show us. So that's. I mean, I wouldn't say I don't blame people, but then it's like you should know. Like there's always, you can always research, you can always ask people, we can always educate you.
Yeah,
it's not that hard. I like when people ask me questions. I don't like when people assume or be like, be stereotypical about things.
Yeah, at school people are always afraid to ask me questions about.
Like ask me, like I don't
Islam
mind. I
stuff.
love teaching you. Like I love teaching people. You ask me a question, I'll sit here. We can have a whole lesson about this.
They think that if they ask us, we'll get defensive about it because what they see in the media, but that's not the case. But that's
better. That's me. That's you. Yeah. Like you looking at me weird. I'd rather have you come up to me and ask me questions like know you wanted to know things, because that's me. That's you telling me, like that's me. Like that's you telling me like, oh, you want to learn more things, or you want to instead of listening to what what the media says, you want to actually come up to me, somebody who's actually going through this stuff, and you want to know more instead of just being like, oh, y'all do this or y'all do that,
right? Like, and assuming about what we do.
Yeah.
So a lot of people love exactly. A lot of people love assuming, like especially about me. Like at school, like a lot of people love assuming. Like they be like, "Oh, are you like not?" No. Oh. I hate when like people be like, not like I'm not trying to be rude, but like sometimes people be like, I'm not trying to be rude, but are you African? You this, blah blah blah. Like
I don't like when people be like, I'm not trying to be rude, then I assume they're gonna say something rude.
Exactly. Yeah, because you'll be like, I'm not trying to.
Yeah,
you trying to be rude.
Yeah. Like it's just so. Anyways, Sadia, do you have another topic for us to talk about?
No, I think we'll wrap it up for today. We've had a good conversation here, and I appreciate every one of us coming, and I appreciate
I appreciate you guys listening to us.
I hope this goes well.
And we're out. Thank you.
We're out.